Yeah, sure. I'll record this. So we're just constructing the reaction functions and finding the Coutnot equilibrium. So if we do that, then we can get the reaction function for firm 1, right? And then we do the same thing for firm 2, take its residual marginal revenue and set it equal to the marginal cost. And then we can get the reaction function for firm 2. So let's, Mike Barbie, so, and I'll put up here, and I mean to say Mike Barbie when I do, it just comes out Barbie, and I'm sure you probably don't mind. But you know,
I get it all the time.
Either way, it's a super cool last name. You're really lucky. I also have a cool last name, but yours is a very nice one. I don't know if you know the origin of where it comes from, but you know, I like to do like family research, and I would love to do the research on your family because it's such a cool name. Do you want to share with us? Do you know where it comes from?
I've done like one of those ancestry genealogy tests, and I've got roots in England and France.
Okay, nice. Okay. The British are notorious. They've been all around the world. so yeah, there are lots of us that have connections to the UK. Okay, so our original demand curve, right, was 229 8Q, right? And then we want to take note that Q is equal to Q1 plus Q2, right? And is that what you did, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so then you reformulated this a little bit into this, call it the residual demand for firm 1 alone. So you did 229 plus 8Q2, and then oh, excuse me, I have my, you're supposed to stop me. I have my signs mixed up there. Minus 8Q1, and then if I want to get the marginal revenue, right, then I'm going to do 229 minus 8Q2 minus 16Q1. So that's what you did, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. And then our MC1 is equal to 5Q1. Okay. So you set those equal to each other, and then you solved for the reaction function, and you got Q1 as a function of Q2. And can you tell us what you got? I'm just down to the reaction function part here.
229 minus 8Q2 all over 21.
Okay, minus 8Q2 all over 21. Okay, and that looks good to me. And similarly, you did the same thing to get the reaction function for firm 2, and then that would be 229 minus 8Q1, right? Divided by, what did you get?
That was divided by 23.
23, okay. So I agree with you. Those are the reaction functions. And then our next part, right, for the Coutnot equilibrium is we would have to go ahead and find the intersection. So the Nash equilibrium is going to be the intersection of the reaction functions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, what did you end up with? So
For Q1 NE,
yeah, Q1 NE.
I got 8.2.
8.2. And did everybody in your group agree, or was there I mean, is this a consensus?
Yeah, like three out of 4.
Oh, well, that is a consensus, right? Not unanimous, but it's a consensus. So now notice, right? Remember, Q1 has a smaller marginal cost, right? So we would expect in the equilibrium that they would produce more output. So I'm guessing your Q2 NE is something less than this, than 8.2.
It is
What'd you get?
7.11.
7.11. And then we just add those together, and you got your Nash equilibrium industry quantity to be, what is it, 15.31?
15.31.
Okay. And now we plug that back into the demand curve to get the price. And what did you get?
106.58.
106.58. Okay. So, and I know you all want to work on the total surplus and all that other stuff, but hold on just a minute. Save, and I'm gonna let's see. I hope that we haven't waited so long that we got stale, but look there. What do you think of that, Michael Barbie?
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, me too. What about the price? Is that the price you got, or are we off a little bit?
Off by like 6 cents.
Okay. That's within, and then notice, if you're ever worried about this, and hopefully it doesn't reset me, what was your price?
106.58.
0.58. Yeah. So you're still getting the correct response from the server. You see the yay, right?
Yeah.
And the quantity for firm 1, boom. Quantity firm 2 will produce. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I don't know if you're as excited as I am, but I just see
I
you
have to
all
agree.
scoring points on the final exam. So that makes me happy. So now we're down. It's how much profit, right, will firm 2 earn, right? What's the total surplus? How much deadweight loss? Now, when we get down here, our group that did competition is going to come in handy, right? Oh, well, actually, so now we're going to switch here. We switch to the next model, the Stackelberg leader follower model. So, okay, so we still have 3 questions, but they're welfare questions. And so let's go ahead and talk about those. Okay, so I'll go back to the whiteboard. And okay. So what did you need help with? the welfare stuff.
I know it asks for producer surplus. I know how to get the consumer surplus, but I didn't know how to get the producer surplus.
Yeah, so it should be the profit plus the fixed cost. Okay. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it's just a definition, because remember, profit is going to be equal to total revenue minus total cost, right? Are you following me? Are you on board?
Yeah, but I had a question about when you put profit plus fixed cost. Is it for profit one or profit two or both?
For each of them has their own separate profit, right, and their own separate costs. So it applies for each of the firms individually. And then if you're going to talk about profit within the industry, each firm can have producer surplus, and then you add up the producer surpluses individually to get the industry level. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that's what I was missing right there.
Yeah. So but here, right, note that it's variable costs, right, for total costs plus fixed costs, right? So then if I go to producer surplus, right, then basically what I'm doing with producer surplus is, so you notice the minus sign there, right? If I add back fixed costs, then producer surplus is total revenue minus only the variable costs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And again, the idea is that producer surplus is a measure of the economic return to the business, and it's from a forward-looking perspective. And fixed costs in economics are assumed to be sunk, which means they're unrecoverable. And so it's a benefit to the producer if any amount of money they receive from selling their product covers those fixed costs, because otherwise those fixed costs would just be a loss that was incurred. But again, it's from a backward perspective, right? It's like, oh, I bought this factory last year. I expected it to last for 10 years and depreciate. But if suddenly the market collapses, I'm just stuck with that loss. But does it hurt anybody else going forward, like consumers, right? Well, no, because I as the entrepreneur, the investor, I took that risk, right? I invested and I sunk, which means I made these costs that were unrecoverable last year, and so if I get any payments back to help me with that cost that was incurred in the past, I can consider myself lucky. I'm getting an economic benefit from that. And you're right in thinking, if you're thinking, well, like most investors expect to have their fixed costs compensated. But if you really think about the way the economy works, the economy is always forward looking. I'm sure, I don't know if you've ever done this, Michael. Have you ever gone to a store and bought something just because you wanted to help the entrepreneur, like an act of charity?
Yeah, I'd have to say yes, like local businesses and stuff.
Yeah, right. So like every once in a while that happens, right? You see, and I do that every once in a while if I go to like some little small town and there's only like one little store there or whatever, because you kind of like, but they're like at your mercy, right? Because most people most of the time, you're not going to Walmart because you feel sorry for Walmart, right? That they, built this big warehouse store, and like, if a Costco opens across the street, that they're gonna like not be able to cover the cost of that building, right? I don't know about you, but most people, it's like you said, small business, but in most transactions in the daily economy, the entrepreneur has to look out for themselves, right? And if Walmart closes one of their stores, no one sheds a tear, and we all go to Costco or Target or something instead. Anyway, I don't know. So do you get the point? Hopefully.
Yeah, I do.
Why? Yeah, okay. All right. So do you have an estimate for, or did you need help getting an estimate for our total
Professor, I had a
surplus?
question.
Go ahead.
How do we get variable cost here?
Well,
Do
remember,
we get that from like the marginal cost equals variable cost times like the
yes,
quantity and Nash
yes,
equilibrium?
yes.
Okay.
So again, you have to, and I didn't do this here, but I could put a little marker, but I just made it general so you'd know that it applied to, each of the individual firms, right? And, the only thing that I guess needs to be said is that, if you're talking about PS for the market, it's, the sum of the producer surpluses for the individual firms. So if we want to get the variable cost for firm one, then that's just going to be the area under the marginal cost for firm one, up to the quantity that it produces, right? And so if we look at that, we can see that, this marginal cost for firm one, right? We've done this before, but it's a ray out of the origin, right? So we're going to end up computing the area of a triangle, and I'll just draw really quickly over here, right? So, and then Michael Barbie, how much did you say that firm one was going to produce? You said 8.2.
Oh
right?
yeah, 8.2.
Right. And so then obviously to get the that gives us the base of the triangle, right? So 8.2 is the measurement along the horizontal axis. So we need the height of the triangle too. And it's really easy because we know this is 5, right? If we plug it in to get the value of the function here. So 5 times 8.2 is 41, right? Was it Miles that was asking that question?
Yeah, the variable cost.
Yeah, for the variable cost. So we measured, the height of this function, and based on our equation, and then the height there, I'll just put it's going to be 41. So now we have we can say the variable cost for firm one is going to be equal to 1/2 the base times the height. So it's 0.5 times 8.2 times 41. Does that make sense, Miles?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, that's the area of that triangle. And is that what you did, Michael Barbie? I don't know if you got to this part or not.
Yeah, I did. I got 41.
Okay. Oh, you mean the height, but what did you get for the variable cost for firm one?
168.02.
Okay. 168.02. Okay. So are we, I know we have all the pieces kind of here, but I guess we didn't actually end up giving our actual values. So we have the total surplus, right, under the Nash equilibrium is going to be the consumer surplus under the Nash equilibrium. And what did you get for that, Michael?
Let's see. Where did I put it? Oh, I got 936.51.
936.51. And then the producer surplus under the Nash equilibrium is going to again be PS1 plus PS2. And did you get the producer surplus?
I did.
Okay, what did you get?
I got 1,286.23.
For the producer surplus? Okay, 1,000. What did you say? 236.
286.
86.31 or something.
0.23.
23. Okay. And then so our total surplus under Nash equilibrium would be the sum of those two. And you want to give me that one? It's just the sum of those two.
I got 2,222.74.
74. Okay. So one of the things that we didn't compute, and we know it's going to be asked for, is the dead weight loss under Coutnot, right? But remember, the dead weight loss is, the absolute value, right, of the change in total surplus. So we're going to do total surplus NE minus total surplus under competition, right? So we're missing, because we don't have our total surplus under competition, right? We're missing a piece of data. But we had our competition group, and I forget who was the leader in the competition group. I can go back and check my notes, but
It was me, Russell.
Okay, Russell, what did you get for the total surplus under competition? Did you do that?
Yeah, total surplus is 2,401.86.
2,401.86, right?
Yeah.
So I would like everybody to note, I'm just assuming that number's right, but one of the reasons why I have some confidence is the first fundamental welfare theorem, Russell, tells me what?
Wait.
You're like what? Okay.
I'm not prepared for trivia. Hang on.
Okay. But you should always you should remember the first fundamental welfare theorem, just because it's like your guiding light, it's the thing that tells us everything. Well, it says that, right, a competitive equilibrium is efficient, and efficiency means it has the maximum possible total surplus. So that this number has to be bigger than that one. If it was the case that for some reason I computed the Nash equilibrium level of total surplus and it ended up being bigger than the total surplus under competition, that would have meant either the first fundamental welfare theorem is wrong, in which case I'm eligible for a Nobel Prize because I found, I mean, after all, it is called the first fundamental welfare theorem. So, it's got to be important, right? And if I find that it's wrong, then, oh my gosh, and see if you can. Do you remember what else? Okay, I don't know if you have it written down. Did you look at it, Russell, when I said, "Oh, first fundamental welfare theorem"? I'm not prepared for trivia, so do you remember exactly what the first fundamental welfare theorem says? He's like, Wikipedia is not giving me the answer. Are you gonna come back and tell us, or are you a little bit?
I don't have it written down, no.
Okay, okay, let's ask somebody else. Arslan, this might be up your wheelhouse if you're. I know you've been thinking about these things, or Joshua, or anybody else. What?
Isn't it that perfectly competitive markets are generally efficient?
Yeah. So, and we should say economically efficient. That's fine. But the first part you said is perfectly competitive. Why does this help us demonstrate that? Right? What do we need for a market to be perfectly competitive? We had our 3 conditions. Do y'all remember? Nobody?
Wasn't there like information symmetry, price taking behavior, and then free entry and exit?
Well, okay, so the free entry and exit, that's kind of like a subset of like the no market power. So when you said price taking behavior, that's normally like no market power. But
Gotcha.
So like captured in the no market power is like price taking behavior, and then normally people would say, oh yeah, and free entry and exit, because if you don't have free entry and exit, then you have barriers to entry, and that means you have market power issues. It's because of lack of free entry and exit that deviations from price taking behavior emerge. But I digress a little bit, because again, you guys would study that more carefully in industrial organization. This is just kind of an overview. But there was one other thing, which was no externalities. No externalities, symmetric information, and no market power. What's going on here is, anybody want to describe what's going on with why the Nash equilibrium shows that we violated the first fundamental welfare theorem? If we, I guess we verified the first fundamental welfare theorem, but the conditions of the first fundamental welfare theorem don't apply to our Nash equilibrium solution.
Is it because the total surplus of the competitive market is an externality?
No, it's that oligopoly is an example of market power. Okay, I just wanted to cut it off really quickly, because the externality thing we'll talk about a little bit, but externality has to do with things like external costs, like pollution, and
Right,
we're not
okay.
assumed any pollution here.
Yeah, I
But
see. The market
yes, yeah, these firms, because they're Coutnot competitors, they have an ability to, only have a limited type of competition with just one another. They don't have to worry about other firms coming in and things like that. So the Nash equilibrium solution is a market power issue. And because these firms have market power, they end up having less total surplus in the market overall. And if we look at this very carefully, what you'll end up seeing is that it's because the firms under the Nash Equilibrium solution, they end up with more profit, but they also, as a result of generating that profit through holding back output, like if we didn't do this, but if you all compare the Nash Equilibrium level of output to the level of output under competition, for the competitive group, what was the total output? Our competitive group, what, Russell, you had the competitive group. What was output?
Sorry, one more time.
Total output under competition.
Total output. Oh, for the quantity, 20.977.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, 20.977. So 20 units was being produced under competition. How is it that these Coutnot competitors are generating higher profits for themselves? Well, they're holding back output, right? Under competition, they would produce 5 more units. Okay, and in order to sell those additional units, they have to offer them at a lower price, and that cuts into their profit. So if they behave like Coutnot competitors, then they restrain their output and they drive up their price. What was the price under competition, Russell?
The price was $61.18.
Yeah. So they're holding back output and they're driving up the price. So again, it's not a perfect example, because if you think about, you probably are familiar with OPEC, right? They're an international oil cartel. But what's the problem that OPEC has? I don't know if you all have read any of the news articles on OPEC, but they're usually constantly fighting against other members in the cartel to maintain a production quota. And so what OPEC tries to do is to get all of the members of OPEC to restrain production, right? To limit supply, to drive up the price of oil, right? But because they cannot directly punish each other, because they're all different countries, they're sovereign entities, there's no international law that they can appeal to if one of their members violates an OPEC contract, for example, and produces more than they said they would at a meeting, right? So if Venezuela decides to produce more, or Russia decides to produce more, because OPEC normally coordinates. It used to be OPEC for a long time was just a collection of countries in the Middle East, but OPEC's also tried to coordinate with other big oil producers around the world, including Venezuela and Russia. But if those countries that just don't go along with the plan, then OPEC doesn't really have a means to enforce them to obey the production restraints, the production quotas that OPEC's recommending. The reason I bring that up is that they're not a perfect cartel. They vacillate, meaning they move back and forth between something approximating a cartel where output is coordinated and fully restrained, right? And the Nash equilibrium where each of the members is doing their own thing. So, but nevertheless, even if they play the Nash game, they still do better at restraining output than if they act like a competitive market. Output's much higher, price is much lower. So anyway, hopefully, again, the main point is we expect total surplus to be highest, output to be highest, prices to be lowest under competition, that's what the first fundamental welfare theorem tells us to expect. And then when we introduce market power, we get less output, higher prices, and a smaller level of total surplus, which means that there's an efficiency loss, right? Going from competition to Coutnot. Okay, so now we can compute. So I guess we go back to Michael Barbet, the deadweight loss, right? We can compute it, and you can see it. I mean, you can do it on your calculator to see exactly, but it's about $200, right? That's lost as a result of the Coutnot.
Yeah, I got 179.12.
Okay, so let's go back now and see if we can answer the questions on Ignition. And so I'll do the new share. We'll go back to Ignition. And so what quantity will firm 2? Well, we did that already. How much profit will firm 2 earn? Did you get that one, Michael?
I'm sorry, I got 494.54.
Okay. Yeah. Good job. And what about the level of total surplus? We said that. What did we get? 220.
2,222.74.
Look at that. And how much deadweight loss does the monopoly cause? Okay. Well, that looks pretty close to right?
Yeah.
So what was the number that you got exactly? You said 1
For the deadweight loss was 179.12.
79 point, just to give us some confidence that the rounding error is not going to kill us here, and it's not, right?
Yeah.
So good job. All right. So we have gone through, and you don't see it here because we would have to go back to like the cartels problem, but on the final exam, you would see, I don't know if it's these exact same 7 questions. I think it probably is, but you would see like probably like 7 other similar questions like this, except for instead of comparing the Coutnot and competition, as we did at the end for the deadweight loss, you'd be comparing the cartel solution to the competitive solution, okay? And then we have these last couple of questions, which are about our new topic, which is Stackelberg. And we haven't really gotten a chance to talk about that. It is discussed in the videos. And so we'll spend time on it next week and then move on from there because we're about out of time today. Does anybody have any questions about what we've gone over?
I have a question about the Coutnot homework. I was wondering when that was due.
Well, you know, I'm going to have it due probably in about a week because we haven't done the Stackelberg thing. So probably I would say, if I look at the calendar, it's the 22nd. We get back together on the 27th, 30th. So it probably will be due like Monday, May 3rd. Yeah. And likely, so I have on, so let me look at my calendar, a little bit more detail here. So Cal Poly's final exam week is starting, you know, because they have some classes that overlap on the weekend, that starts on May the 15th. Okay, so I will probably have our third exam on, I'll give you guys like a week to study, and then have it on Thursday, May the 13th, or maybe I'll have it on that Tuesday. I probably will do the Tuesday just because it's like that last week before we actually hit finals week. So the plan is that way we could have it on the 11th, and you guys, y'all could review your answers on Ignithium to see how you did. What I do for this class, and I think we're on pace to do it, is offer an opportunity to retake one of our 3 midterms. And I don't know if there's anybody that's in this position. If you look at your Ignithium score and you scored less than 70%, then you're eligible to retake a midterm in order to get that midterm score up to a 70%. Because when you do the retake, there's no graphing. You just go and you do Ignithium, and if you get anything over 70%, I give you 70%. But I'll give you guys a little bit more information on that. But does anybody have, by like, you know, show of hands, because I can see all your hands right now, is there anybody that would like to retake a midterm that's here? You guys know how to do the reactions to show your hands, right? So I have one person in this group. Okay, well, I have 2. Okay, so that's what you'd be able to do. I have 3. Okay, you'd be able to do during the final exam, and you all might. Okay, so I have a few people, and you all might also find out, and hopefully it's not the case, but if for whatever reason, you know, this part of the class, it's been my experience in, you know, the past so many semesters, that this last exam is the kind of most challenging one for a lot of students. So I guess, you know, the point is, please, yeah, try to study and obviously do a good job when we do our last midterm in that week before finals week. But if for whatever reason, you know, you goof up on something, you get a second bite at the apple, meaning that you could retake it and still, you know, get a passing score. Now, I will say one other thing is that occasionally I have 1 or 2 students that wants to retake 2 midterms, and that is possible, but there's still a limited amount of time for the final exam. So you don't get like double the time or something like that. You just have to manage your time within the 2 hours that we have for the final exam. If you wanted to retake 2 of them, that would be possible. I've never had anybody attempt 3, so hopefully there's nobody that wants to do that, just because it's a time issue, right? You have a time constraint. Okay, are there any questions for me before I let you all go?
Just really quickly, Professor, to make sure I'm on the same